Ooh, what's up, nerds and geeks? My name is OMG WTF LOLFTWBRB. Welcome back to more Total Extreme Wrestling 2016. We are playing as the WWF in the year 2001. More importantly, we are booking the invasion angle. And we are starting a new month. We are now in the month of November, leading into one of our Big Four pay-per-views. And it's the second Big Four we've covered. We've done SummerSlam, and now we're going to be doing Survivor Series next. And we've got some big news regarding Survivor Series that is going to take place tonight on this episode of Monday Night Raw. But before we can get into this episode of Monday Night Raw, I've actually got nothing to say. So you know what? I lied. Let's just get into the episode, because I'm a liar, and I got nothing to say. Yeah. Nothing to say to you guys, at least. I'm just joking. Either way, whatever. We go into the pre-show. We have a total of 3 pre-show matches tonight. By the way, you guys may notice something. Some of you may not. I'm going to point it out. We are hosting in the British Columbia area. Specifically, we're in Canada. And we're going to be in Canada until after Survivor Series. It's the WWF Tour of Canada, baby! So, that's something to look forward to. All you Canadians, you're welcome. We're here. And JD Michaels over here and Joe E. Legend are 2 local Canadian talents that I figured not only do they look like they'd make a fun team, one of them's a rookie, one's kind of a veteran, so we have like a protege type thing maybe going on here. But either way, I feel like they did well, and nothing really negative. So, you know what? And they got 15 and 16. We'll get to that when we get to that. We're jumping ahead of ourselves. We have an abysmal pre-show match, nerds and geeks. Head chop! Al Snow and Funaki going on to defeat the team of Joey Legend and JD Michaels in 6 minutes, 3 seconds, when Funaki defeats JD Michaels with the Fisherman Buster. Of course, Al Snow was head and shoulders of everybody else. A lot of head jokes with Al Snow, I swear. Head and shoulders, head chop. What does everybody want? Hey, we are, D plus 48. Not too bad, That's really not that bad. Al Snow was even off his game. Come on, Al. He was like, come on, I long flight. You had me come here and put me on the pre-show against these guys. Funaki with a 47. Look at that. The great performance. Despite being off his game, he had a great performance. Al Snow with a 65. And JD Michaels with a 15. Joe E. Legend with a 16. You know what? They made the most of their appearance tonight, nerds and geeks. Joe E. Legend improving in Rumble, and JD Michaels improving in both Rumble and Performance. And I believe this was actually both their first matches. I think I checked that beforehand, and I don't think they had wrestled yet, so maybe this will get them recognized. Either way, we then move on to our second pre-show match of the night, as we have a bout that had good heat and decent wrestling. Kane goes over the WWF Hardcore Champion Ron Simmons in 10 minutes, 25 seconds with the chokeslam. Technically, this should mean that Kane is the Hardcore Champion, but it's the pre-show, therefore it does not count. 73 B-, and apparently Kane and Ron Simmons just don't click at all. And you know what the funny thing is, nerds and geeks? I actually had a feeling that they weren't going to click. I did, but I went with it, and I was like, they haven't had a match yet, so they might, I might. But my gut told me they didn't, and I was right. Good thing this was on the pre-show. A 73 for the in-ring performance for Kane, and Simmons with a 63, so whole 10 points between them. Kane also improving in Rumble tonight. As we move on to our main event of the pre-show, that gets us a solid 81B here, and about that had good wrestling and a decent reaction from the crowd. Kurt Angle goes over the not returned yet Eddie Guerrero. I wasn't sure what I was going to say with that. I almost said returning, actually, but not quite yet. Eddie will be returning to TV here soon, though, but until the meantime, he's reserved to the pre-show bout to either getting victories or going under people who I have plans for. So either way, Kurt gets another victory over a game Eddie. Besides, who doesn't want to see Kurt and Eddie go at it one more time? I know I do. Beats him in 13 minutes, 5 seconds with the Angle Slam. Kurt with an 88, Eddie with a 72, plus we are going to be turning Eddie face here shortly, so we're going to get as many segments as we can in, Eddie's also improving in performance, so nothing to complain about, Nothing to complain about. Alright, got that drink in before we can start off the show. Let's move forward as we start off the night, Nerds and Geeks, with 100 A-star perfect rating. Monday Night Raw opens up, of course, after the No Mercy video package is done playing, showing the highlights from last night. Shane McMahon and Booker T, two representatives from WCW, actually make their way down to the ring. A surprising appearance since we haven't seen them in a while, really since they've taken over Nitro. Once they're in the ring, Shane takes the mic and he smiles and he says, "What's up, British Columbia?" Because apparently we got to sign the generic arena or something. So, there you go. Did any of you happen to catch No Mercy last night? Because if you didn't, then cover your ears, because I'm going to spoil it for you. WCW finally took out that trash that is ECW. Let me adjust my mic. Put it a little closer. I don't know how close it was before, but it looked like it was a little far. Noticed it in the corner of my eye. Don't think any of you care. Either way, when WCW moved past ECW, and it's time to focus on our bigger prize in my father and the WWF. You see, Dad, the annual Royal Rumble isn't too far away. And a well-kept secret from the fans is that you start prepping for the Royal Rumble around this time. On a side note, I don't know if that's true at all. I just figured, November, December. Makes sense because December's a Christmas month. Why not? Either way. And I want to make things crystal clear here. When I say that WCW wants in the Royal Rumble next year. Now, I already know you're rushing down to tell me no. So while you make your way down to the ring, I'll just get straight to my point. And we got to have a couple of locker room incidents, but we'll cover that after the promo. And Shane says, you see, in the past, dumbass, why'd you spell past like that? In the past, when you and I disagreed, we've always placed a bet. This was even, before this war happened, back when I was just a kid. My dad and I have always been competitive, and I know he can never turn down a challenge. But before Shane can issue out his challenge, Vince McMahon's music hits, and out comes the chairman, and he goes, Shane, you're right about one thing. I was going to come down here and refuse your idiotic request, but then I heard your idiotic offer. You seen, Shane, the one thing you never learned growing up, when we always placed those bets and you lost those bets, was to look through the loopholes. You know what, I guess I thought I had him challenge. Maybe I did. I don't know. Either way, we knew where this is going. I hate when I go on those little tadbits. Or tibbits, whatever they're called. Yeah, I'm going with it again. So I'll take your challenge at Survivor Series, and WCW will be in the Royal Rumble if they win. But when the WWF wins, this war will be officially passé. It's your move, Shane. Shane then says, Dad, it's not that I didn't see the loophole. In fact, I actually kind of left it open for you. Because I'm going to raise you one, Pops. I'll put this war on the line. I'll put WCW on the line. The Royal Rumble is worth it because the Royal Rumble guarantees the main event of WrestleMania. So, yeah, I'll put WCW on the line for the Rumble. And then that's when Vince jumps in. He says, well, all right then. Shane, it's confirmed that at Survivor Series and a traditional, but Shane interrupts him and he says, no, we're not doing that. See, before you rudely interrupted me, I was going to tell you my stipulation. You see, if my company's on the line, then we're going to do this the WCW way. You see, Dad, you and I are at war, and it's time to play some games. So at Survivor Series, it'll be Team WCW versus Team WWF in war games. So, Dad, do you fold, or are you going to take my bet? And then Vince says, well, I'm going to take it, all right. And I'm calling your bluff, too. Because at Survivor Series, WCW officially dies. And then it's confirmed. Oh, hold on. I'm not done. Because Shane McMahon, even Vince was walking away. I was walking away from the promo. And Shane says, where are you going, Dad? Dad, where are you going? I actually haven't introduced you to Team WCW's captain yet. And that's when we hear the woo! And Ric Flair's music hits. And out comes the Nature Boy, who, admittedly, is still a little banged up after his attack on by the Undertaker. But he comes out, he gets right in Vince's face, and he goes, "Oh yeah, McMahon, The Nature Boy is going to be the man to put McMahon out of business. And I may be banged up now, baby, but trust the Nature Boy will be styling and profiling at Survivor Series to put your ass out of business. Woo! And that ends the segment as it is revealed that at Survivor Series, WCW has an opportunity to enter the Royal Rumble and maybe main event WrestleMania. All they got to do is beat Vince McMahon and his team of whoever he chooses in Team WWF in the War Games, one of WCW's most memorable matches. In fact, WWE, I should say, released a DVD on it a while back. I own it, actually, so that's why I remember it so well. Great match. If any of you really know what War Games is, I highly recommend you look it up. Pretty much, it's just like 3 rings with this giant cage surrounding these 3 rings. So I don't know if you technically would really be able to pull it off, but I like it. I'd still think, it'd be worth doing it, especially at Survivor Series, instead of doing the traditional, 10-man match. Why don't we add a little flair to it? Because, Ric Flair, whatever. A little flair to it and make it a War Games. And like I said, it was like pretty much a big steel cage with 3 rings in it, and 2 people start the match. And then over time, I think it's 2 minutes, I'm not really sure. Over time, one person comes out from one of the representative teams. It's determined by like a head toss or something. And then for a brief while, it's like a handicap match, and then the next person comes out, so on and so forth until everybody's in. And that's when the match is like officially underway, and we can finally end it pretty much, because it only can end once all 10 men are in the ring. But either way, we did have a couple locker room incidents. I'm going to get to the positive first, as The Undertaker continues to make Mark Jindrak look like the promising project he is by helping him with selling. Although RVD, highly disappointing me this week, as he showed up so high on soft drugs that he had to be sent home, nerds and geeks. RVD got some of that real good sticky icky, and he got baked, nerds and geeks. He's so baked, we had to send his ass home, and yeah, who knows where that's going to go. I did end up finding him. Not fighting him, finding him. So maybe he'll learn his lesson. But if that happens again, I'm going to have to suspend him. Either way, Shane, Vince, and Flair all improvising well here. Jerry Lawler being weak and flabby. But it did get the crowd off to a strong start, and it got him hotter. As we then move on to our opening match of the night, we open up with a 72 B-, and about that had decent wrestling, but not much weight and heat. Christian goes on to defeat, the new WCW United States Champion. Christian goes on to defeat the one, Billy Gunn, in 6 minutes, 29 seconds. Christian with a 77, Billy with a 44, and no improvements to improve on. But after the match, Christian takes the mic to get us a 87 B+ rating here, and the crowd is just showering him with boos, nerds and geeks. They do not like Christian, and mind you, we're in Canada, so they don't like Christian because he turned his back on not only his brother, but a fellow Canadian. They don't like that, eh? Either way, Christian, like I said, he's getting showered with boos, and he says, I was going to come out here and tell you why I did what I did last night. But it seems like you stupid Canadians have no respect for your United States champion. So I've decided that neither you or Edge deserve a response. At least, not tonight. That's when the crowd starts popping, because Edge comes rushing out from the crowd, into the ring, and he goes right after, apparently, Christian, and he takes him down, and, lands a few strikes on him, taking on the United States champion, but Christian manages to pull himself out of the ring and get out of there, but unfortunately, he leaves the belt, and he leaves the mic. Edge picks up the mic, and he picks up the belt, and he says, was this really worth it? This title from a company that neither of us work for? You know what? Scratch that, Christian. You've always been a greedy son of a bitch, but I never expected you to stoop this low. So enjoy your 15 minutes of fame, Christian, because I've got a rematch clause, and I'm cashing in at Survivor Series in front of all our friends, family, friends and family. I don't know where else. Friends and family back in Toronto. And they're all going to see just how much of a loser you really are. And the funniest part, Christian, is that after I beat you at Survivor Series, you won't be able to ride my coattails and leak off my popularity anymore. You're going to have to do it all on your own, and we're all going to watch you fail. Pretty much. Just burying Christian. Edge is pissed. His best friend of how many years, a.k.a. brother, just turned on him, stole the title from him. He throws pretty much the title at Christian, or, maybe doesn't throw it because that's disrespectful, but, maybe throw. I like it. He throws it. He throws it at Christian. The crowd is hot. They're like, holy hell. They're like, yes, Edge. We love Edge. We're Canadian. Even if we weren't Canadian, we'd love Edge because he's freaking Edge and he's a Hall of Famer or a future Hall of Famer. Everyone loves Edge. I really like this angle, to be honest. But Christian is lost on his own. I was going to do the high-pitch one, but it just didn't come out. It started out deep voice. Wow. Then we go to a TNA update here as JR and Jim Ross are notified that, later tonight, I've been notified that we're apparently going to get an update on TNA. I didn't know something happened, but apparently something happened last night after the show, and we're going to hear an update on Tess and Albert, the WWF Tag Team Champions. So just pretty much generic angle right there, nothing too special. As we then move on to another perfect rating with a A-star 100, as Jericho walks into Vince McMahon's office and he says, "Hey boss, I couldn't help but overhear your ass clown of a son challenge you to War Games. You know what? It got me thinking. Who better than Chris Jericho to lead the Team WWF? I mean, Team WWF's captain needs to be a veteran. He needs to be someone who strikes fear into the hearts of WCW. The captain of Team WWF needs to be a true locker room leader and someone who has all the respect of the entire locker room. And that someone is clearly Chris Jericho. What do you say, boss?" Vince then replies, Chris, the majority of that is very true about, the captain of Team WWF, but, I'm not really sure that it's true about you, or that you fit the criteria that even you really set yourself for. In fact, didn't you lose last night to Diamond Dallas Page? And then Jericho's like, what? Clearly that old man had an advantage with his metal hip that, by the way, nobody told me about before the match. And DDP still refuses to admit that he has one. But that's neither here nor there. What do you mean I don't meet the qualifications? Who could be better than Chris Jericho? And that's when Vince points behind him, and we see The Undertaker standing there, and just, looking all menacing, and then Chris is like, at first he's kind of, maybe looks a little worried, but then he goes, "You've got to be kidding me. The Undertaker? You know what? I'm sick of this place. I didn't get any respect from WCW. I'm not getting any respect from this place, or you or the WWF, and I sure as hell ain't getting respect from any of those people out there. And I'm gonna go, and I got something on my mind. And I'm gonna give all of you a reason to respect me tonight, pretty much, when I go out there and issue an open challenge to any fool in the WCW locker room." So, of course, Chris Jericho and Vince improvising well, as they always do. Taker wasn't rated on entertainment or anything, just menace, so that's fine. As we then move on to our next segment, which gets another perfect rating, A-star 100, as Chris Jericho's music hits, and he makes a beeline towards the ring. He's furious. Once in the ring, of course, he takes the mic and he says, I think I'm starting to get it now. None of you have any respect for me. None of you people, not my boss, not our supposed team captain, and not even my countrymen. Last night when I was facing DDP, it's funny, I don't know if I misheard anyone, but it sure as hell sounded like to me that you people were chanting for DDP, 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 the WCW guy. Well, you know what? I don't respect any of you. I don't respect the guy in the stupid red shirt in row 3. I don't respect this kid and his dumb hat, and especially that stupid idiot wearing a rock shirt. You know your role, buddy, and you shut your mouth, Junior. I'm sick and tired of not getting any respect around here. I didn't leave WCW just to go right back into it. So tonight, you people are going to be forced to drink in some of Chris Jericho's Kool-Aid and learn some respect for the best in the world. So if any of you jabronis over on the WCW locker room want to step in just to get knocked down, then be my guest. And Jericho tosses the mic down, but unfortunately for him, that's when the Giant's music hits, and out comes the 6.5-footer, 400-pounder, I don't know, whatever they say, and the Giant makes his way to the ring, and Jericho kind of just is instantly regretting his challenge. Giant came across well, and it's actually the start of the War Games, apparently. So we move on to the next segment. Not a bad way to start the War Games. Handle changes. What for? The hell? Okay. I didn't know that I was, giving Teddy Long a gimmick change. By the way, Teddy Long's back, everybody. Holla, holla, holla. Special, not a special referee, but back in a referee position. He's, apparently, I have no idea what the gimmick I gave him again was, but that was interesting. We have a bout that had superb wrestling and great heat. The Giant goes on to defeat Chris Jericho in 12 minutes, 34 seconds with the choke slam. And we got an 83B+. Good on you guys. Chris Jericho with an in-ring performance of a 90, and the Giant not too far behind. In fact, just 1 point behind with a 90 himself. And I think I just said Chris Jericho had a 90. Excuse me. Jericho had a 91, Giant with a 90. That's what I was trying to say. We then move on to our next segment, which is the TNA segment, as we get a solid B rating here with an 80, as Mick Foley is now standing in the ring, and he says, now before I go on, hold on, I got to take a drink for this. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, it's always great to be back right here in the British Columbian region of Canada, but I've unfortunately come out with bad news. You see, last night after the pay-per-view No Mercy, the WWF Tag Team Champions Test and Albert were attacked in the parking lot at the end of the show. Now, again, unfortunately, they didn't get a look at who did it, and Miss Stratus wasn't there at the time to really see anything. And, well, all the cameras really saw were two big men in black hoodies attacking our champions. So that brings me to what we have to do next. So if the representatives from TNA can come out here, please. And then that's when TNA's theme hits, and out comes Trish. Out comes a beat-up Albert, and they're down to the ring, and then Mick says, well, now as you guys can see, Test isn't here. That's because after the backstage assault, we learned that the injury to Test was too severe and would keep him out of action and unable to defend his tag team championships in the 30-day time period required. So with much regret, Albert, Trish, I'm going to have to ask you to vacate those titles. And that's when TNA reluctantly hand over the Tag Team Championships, thus vacating the WWF Tag Team titles. But the angle's not over there because Chuck Palumbo's music hits, and out comes Chucky P and Stacy Keibler. And Stacy says, aw, you know, that really sucks. Chuck and I went through something similar, Albert. And, you know, what we just ended up doing was trimming the fat. And you know, Albert, you don't need to vacate those titles, you see. You've already gotten rid of most of the fat. You just got to trim a little bit more of it. And you know, of course, when I'm talking about the fat, I'm talking about you, Trish. You see, Albert, if you just join up with me and Chuck, we can continue your tag title reign, and I can bring you both to greatness. And that's when Trish takes the mic from Foley, and she says, why don't you just shut the hell up? You're nothing more than a corner whore who has her men do all her dirty work. Now, I was told that they would said whore back in the day by my buddy Chris. I'm not sure about that, but god damn it, they said that. Stacy just got burned. Called her a corner hoe. Either kind of corner, whatever. She says, continue saying, you know, I challenge you to a match, Stacy, but I know you would decline. So instead of you and I facing, how about your guy, Chuck Palumbo, steps into the ring with a real man, and Albert. Trust me, because Albert may look banged up, but trust me when I say, Albert can go all night long. Little, you know, Trish continuing her little teases here and there. And that'll set up our next match, but before we can get into that, Palumbo is getting better at his gimmick, which is pretty good. Foley came out looking excellent, but Trish and Stacy performed poorly, apparently. Foley overshadowing the women. We then move on to that match, which does, honestly, an impressive 79 solid B here. I was kind of worried here because Albert and Palumbo, I'm not going to say they're bad, but they're not really the best superstars on the roster. They're certainly been carried more than once in their career, or at least so far, by their either opponents or partners. So I was a little kind of worried about putting them together, but solid B's not bad for these two. We have a decent match here. Albert goes on to defeat Chuck Palumbo in 7 minutes 53 seconds, not 59, with a flying leg drop. Jesus, Albert. We had a lot of interference here as well. I wouldn't have imagined the flying leg drop. In fact, I imagined that spine buster move he does. I forget what it's called. But either way, we did have a lot of interference, but that's mostly because Trish and Stacy distracted both Albert and Chuck at the same time because they got into it at the ringside, and the referee kicked them out, and that's when I would imagine Albert hitting that spine buster, and then maybe hits the flying leg drop for the 1-2-3 to get the victory. Trish doing some good work ringside. Albert with a 72, and Chuck with a 71. We then go on to not another, I think this is actually our first just solid A rating here. But either way, solid A with a 92 rating, as Mick Foley, he's back in the ring. By the way, I forgot to mention, Mick Foley was on commentary for the previous match because, well, here's why. He gets back in the ring and he takes the mic and he says, well, I'm glad that's all settled and we've, fixed those issues, but unfortunately our tag team title issue hasn't been resolved. But that's when Lord Steven Regal's music hits, and out he comes alongside Power Plant. He clears his throat. He says, "Now, if you'll excuse me, Commissioner Foley, I've already resolved your little tag team conundrum. You see, last night WCW's Power Plant was this close to becoming your new WWF Tag Team Champions. So I see it's only fit that Power Plant be gifted those tag titles." And then Foley says, that's not how we do things around here, Regal. While you may be right about how close Power Plant came last night, they still lost. But they do deserve another shot, along with the other team in last night's title match, which is why tonight, right here in British Columbia, Canada, it'll be WCW's Power Plant taking on the Hardy Boys in the main event for the WWF Tag Team Championships. But that's when Stone Cold Steve Austin's music hits, and out comes Stone Cold and his protege, Rhino. And they make their way right to the ring, and Austin goes, "Oh, hell no! Oh, hell no! That ain't how things are going to happen, Mick. Last night, those four lost. They don't deserve another damn title shot. There's only one team who deserves this damn title match, and you're looking at them. So if you're giving shots around here, then you best be giving us our shot." And then Foley says, "Well, Austin, you do have a point. Both Power Plant and the Hardys did indeed lose last night at No Mercy, but so did you. But Rhino, on the other hand, had a very impressive victory over Triple H. So you know what, Austin? I'll give it to you. Tonight, it'll be WCW's Power Plant versus the Hardy Boys versus Stone Cold Steve Austin and Rhino for the WWF Tag Team titles. Now give me a hell yeah!" And then imagine the crowd saying hell yeah while Austin just kind of beams at him like, "What the fuck did you say?" And referee races down to the ring for a tag title match. Impromptu tag title match, by the way. Regal was very underwhelming. Austin was a real star, and Stasiak is getting better at his gimmick, as is Rhino. Rhino's not getting better at the gimmick, but he's improving in acting. That's what I meant. So we move on to our tag title match between the Hardys, Power Plant, Rhino, and Austin. Gets us a 74 B-, which is a little upsetting. I was hoping for definitely a little more, but what can you do sometimes? 74 B- here, and about that had good wrestling and a decent reaction from the crowd. Mentor and protege, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Rhino go on to defeat the Hardy Boys and Power Plant, and apparently this was an elimination match, which I hate when it does that. But Power Plant got eliminated first, and then the Hardys and Stone Cold and Rhino have won the WWF World Tag Team Championships. Austin was head and shoulders above everybody else, which doesn't surprise me. Regal doing good work ringside. Jindrak getting better at his gimmick. Matt and Jeff, of course, with excellent chemistry. Matt with an 89. Jeff was the better Hardy tonight with a 90. Sean Stasiak with a 58. Mark Jindrak taking a hefty lead over Stasiak tonight with a 65. Rhino with a 79. And Austin with 100. Looking great. Matt's also improving and flying. We didn't end off the night with a solid A rating, getting us a 92 to end off the show with just Austin and Rhino celebrating, drinking beer, smashing their titles together, smashing the beer with the title, smashing beer cans to beer cans, getting drunk to end off the show as we now have new WWF Tag Team Champions. Of course, Austin being the real star in this segment. We end off the show to get us honestly, a surprising, solid A rating with a 90 overall. I didn't think this show would have done it. I know this show has kind of been a little underwhelming, to be honest, after a pay-per-view, but I felt like it would have been the right direction in as we just, shoot right into the fact that, yeah, we're doing War Games at Survivor Series. We already have a United States Championship match confirmed, which I didn't book in, so I'll have to remember to do that. We already know the team captain of Team WCW and Ric Flair, and we now have new tag team champions, as TNA were forced to vacate their championships because apparently Tess was attacked backstage, but in real life, I caught him with drugs, and I had to suspend him. But that's okay, because the plan, honestly, always was to have TNA drop the tag titles to Austin and Rhino this month. Apparently, one of our developmental companies had a show, so we'll have to check that out in a second. But Rock apparently is the most entertaining wrestler in the world. So let's check out Heartland, that's what it is. Heartland Wrestling Association's pay-per-view or whatever the hell this is. So we get a solid D rating with a 47 here. We open up the night with the Haas brothers, Charlie Haas and Russ Haas, taking on Helena's Hunks. I have no idea who that is, with a solid 34 rating. We then have a confrontation between Terry Funk and Shannon Moore with a 56 rating. Roy Fox goes on to defend his HWA Cruiserweight title against Corporal Cajun with a 38. Mike Sanders defeats BJ Whitmer with a 46. Sanders, of course, is one of our developmental stars, as is Corporal Cajun, the Haasses, and Shannon Moore. And then we go on to D'Lo Brown, I almost said D. Malenko, D'Lo Brown, going over Shet Jabolski to retain the HWA Heavyweight title with a 46 rating. Oh, look at this, Billy Gunn. I need momentum. I don't care. Ooh, Ric Flair. Mark Jindrak doesn't connect with the fans. I'm sorry, Rick, but this is one time I think you and I are going to have to disagree. Rob Van Dam, you were gone for a night. What do you mean you need to be assigned a position? Okay. There you go. Whatever. Weirdo. Terry Long still a referee, or did I mess it up? Okay. Oh, he's a hustler. This is referee job. It's a hustler. Either way, though, nerds and geeks, like I said, new tag team champions. We can check that out as we end off this episode. Hope you guys have enjoyed. If you have, do me a favor. Leave me a comment, like, and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, my name's been OMG, WTF, LOL, FTWBRB, and I will see you guys for Thursday Night Nitro. So until then, have a great day.